Good morning, guys. This is going to be a short class on direction finding without aids, and that means finding cardinal directions. You'd be surprised at how many people can't do that. All right. In a shit hit fan scenario, many people worry about being able to get around. One of the most basic ways to move, if you have to move, is by knowing what direction you're going to go in. And surprise, surprise, many people do not know how to tell directions, either during the day or at the night. This is just a really basic class teaching you how to tell directions in the simplest way possible so you can know the cardinal direction you are moving in the way you need to go. This is basically knowing how to find the cardinal direction without having navigational aid devices. And that means a compass, a GPS, a watch, etc. I will discuss multiple ways from having nothing to using small tools such as a watch and some sticks, etc. I can keep this as simple as possible, not wanting to turn this into a land navigation class. That class will come later. And truthfully, most people do not need to know land navigation when traveling. They just need to know how to determine north, south, east, and west to help them get where they're going. So, the simplest way to tell what direction you're moving is by using the sun during daylight hours. There are multiple ways to use the sun. Some are complicated and require you have a watch or other items you can make, such as sticks to tell east-west lines or north areas. But let's talk about simple first. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It moves east to west. That is as simple as it gets. So if you watch the sun rise and you are facing east, by raising your left arm, you are pointing north. That gives you all the cardinal directions you need to know to determine what direction you have to go in. All right. So the moon. The moon follows the same general path as the sun across the sky. This surprises a lot of people. This means that the moon basically rises in the east and it sets in the west. Stand facing the rising moon, the same as you would the rising sun. Raise your left arm, that is north. Raise your right arm, that is south. Now you know cardinal directions at night. So using the stars. People have been telling directions using the stars for thousands of years. When you can see the stars, it is a fairly easy way to determine north and south or just north. You only need to know one cardinal direction to figure out the other three. So, in the northern hemisphere, you can determine the direction of the north by first locating the North Star. You use this using the constellation Cassiopeia or the Big Dipper. To locate the North Star from the Dipper, find the pointers, and that's the two stars at the end of the Big Dipper's bowl. Aim a straight line between the two stars at the end of the Big Dipper's bowl. That will be the North Star. The distance to the North Star is about 5 times the distance between the pointers. Okay, to locate the North Star using the Cassiopeia constellation, find the center star of the 5-star constellation, a group of 5 bright stars shaped like a lopsided M or a lazy W. Aim a straight line from the center star that will point towards the Big Dipper. Approximately halfway between the Big Dipper and Cassiopeia will be the North Star. Okay, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's a little different. You can determine the direction of true south by using the Southern Cross. Finding the Southern Cross constellation, a group of 4 bright stars shaped like a cross tilted to one side. Find the pointers of the star. That's the 2 stars forming the long axis. Extend the axis of the cross 4.5 times its length to an imaginary point. From this point, look down and select the landmark. You are now facing south. Movement considerations. Finding a cardinal direction is just one step before you start moving. First, you should know where you're going and make sure you know which direction that is in. Most road maps will give you a cardinal direction or which way is north. You need to remember that if you're using road maps, a lot of highways and roads do not always go the direction that is in the title. They meander around to get to a location. This means that going overland could be quicker, especially if you're moving by foot. First, you have to know where you are. Then you have to know where it is you want to go and figure out the cardinal direction you're going to need to get there. Then find your direction and start moving. So points of reference. You're going to need these. Points of reference, once you have identified the cardinal directions and you have decided which way you want to move, you need to pick out a point of reference in the direction you wish to travel that does not move. This allows you to know your direction of movement without having to stop constantly, which means you can move faster towards your end objective. If you cannot find a point of reference in the direction because of weather or terrain, pick something closer, then walk towards it. When you reach it, look back to your start point, make sure the two are lined up, and look beyond it for another reference point. Most people will not need a point of reference. They will just keep track of the sun or the moon when moving to ensure they are going in the direction they need to. A point of reference just makes it easier during movement, especially if weather is coming in or clouds. So, okay, some alternative methods of determining cardinal direction. I'm going to lay out some other methods for figuring out cardinal directions. These methods can help if it is cloudy or if you have trouble seeing the sky. All right. So the stick and shadow method. So the steps for using the shadow tip method are the same wherever you are. Find a straight stick about 3 feet long and place it in the ground vertically in a level, brush-free spot. Using a small stone or twig, mark the tip of the shadow cast by the stick. Wait until the shadow moves about 1 to 2 inches. That's approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Then mark the shadow tip's new position the same way you marked the first shadow tip. Get a rock and put it on there. Draw a line between the first mark and about a foot beyond the second mark to get the approximate east-west line. Stand with your left foot on the first mark and your right foot on the end of the line you just drew. You're now facing north. The fact is true no matter what temperate zone you are in. All right. If you are uncertain whether or not to place your left or right foot on the first mark, remember the basic rule from telling east from west. The sun always rises in the east and sets in the west, but rarely due east or due west. The shadow tip moves just the opposite. Therefore, the first shadow tip mark will always be in a westerly direction, and the second mark will always be in an easterly direction. The fact is true everywhere on Earth. In the northern temperate zone, a shadow cast at noon will point in the general direction of north. The reverse is true in the southern temperate zone, with a shadow or at noon pointing in the general direction of south. All right, let's go on. So if you have a compass, things to remember. Compasses react to metal, so if you have one or using it, keep it away from any metal on your person. Stay out of any metal villains. It will work, but it can be slightly off. In the shit hit the fan scenario, if bombs, especially any type of nuclear bombs, are set off, it can screw up the electromagnetic field, but screw with your compass. The sky is the simplest and usually most accurate way to get cardinal directions, and it's hard to mess the sky up. All right, the crescent moon. The moon's orbit is 29.5 days, during which it has 3 visible stages: first quarter, full, last quarter. The first quarters and last quarters are crescent-shaped for several days. When the moon is crescent, draw a line between the connecting tips and continue to the horizon. That will be south. The full moon is usually bright enough to cast a faint shadow. Use the same technique for the daylight shadow tip method that we just talked about to determine direction. All right, guys, that's it. Down and dirty, quick and simple. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll do a land navigation class later that will be a little bit more in depth using maps and compasses, etc. I hope this helps some of you. Like I said, any questions, just hit me up. Remember, be safe.